The president urged the Senate to move forward and pass the measure and get it to his desk so he can sign it. Biden said the measure not only lowers the cost of prescription healthcare for families, but claimed it would also reduce the deficit and fight inflation, as the nation grapples with the highest inflation rates in more than 40 years. Biden has thanked the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer for his determined effort to produce the strongest possible bill to bring down costs and reduce the deficit in climate crisis while boosting our energy security. Biden stated, now Congress must act quickly and get legislation to my desk to deliver for many Americans. Manchin indicated he would support a reconciliation bill in August, that includes provision to lower prescription prices and a 2-year extension of subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. According to a Democrat briefed on the conversations, Manchin's demands means Democrats will probably only be able to produce a far smaller bill that erases the hopes of many in the party to use it to fund clean energy incentives that could begin to help curb global warming. There's a new update on Social Security benefits. A huge cost of increase is going to pass soon, and this means millions of Americans are going to receive a bigger benefit boost. Lawmakers are pushing for a $200 increase, and now, according to several new estimates, retirees could see a double-digit percentage increase in their Social Security benefits next year as inflation runs hot. Based on new inflation data, through June, the cost of living for Social Security benefits could be an increase of 10.5% next year, boosting the average retiree benefit by $175 every month. The nonprofit committee responsible for the budget puts that increase at 11.4% if inflation keeps trucking along as it currently does. And even if inflation cools, the committee responsible for a budget estimates a 9% COLA, while the Senior Citizens League predicts 9.8%. Now, the hike doesn't kick in until next year, even as prices rise now. The higher benefit could see an increase in the tax burden and reduced government benefits for lower-income retirees, and it complicates the outlook for Social Security for everyone else. In June, the annual report from the trustees of the Social Security Medicare programs projected a 3.8% COLA increase next year. They then bumped that up in a briefing hosted by the Bipartisan Policy Center, saying it could be closer to 6% and even 8%. Then came the Consumer Price Index. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported this week, showing that prices increased at 9.9% over the last 12 months for the roughly 70 million retired senior citizens and disabled workers who are seeing rising prices eroding the buying power of the Social Security benefits. A federal check is promising. Meantime, the COLA doesn't take into account increases in the Medicare Part B premium. In 2022, Part B increased 14.5%, one of the highest jumps in the program's history. The Part B premium is automatically deducted from Social Security checks. For many retirees, Social Security is a major part of their income. Nearly 9 out of 10 people aged 65 and older receive a benefit. Moreover, Social Security benefits represent about 30% of the income for the elderly. A bigger Social Security benefit translates to higher income, which can mean higher taxes for those with incomes above $25,000 and $32,000 for married couples. Experts have said the higher income can result in cuts in some income-related benefits for low-income seniors. Finally, another question is how the ballooning effect could benefit checks could impact main Social Security trust funds. It's forecast to continue paying out full benefits but through 2034, at which point it can only pay out 77% of scheduled benefits.
President.
The senator from Delaware.
Mr. President, you and I have had the blessing of traveling to South Africa together. So I know you know, as I do, that it is a critical nation, not just on its own terms as a country of 70 million people, a multilingual, multi-faith, multi-ethnic democracy, working to achieve the incredible promise enshrined in its Constitution, working to achieve the vision of the liberation struggle. But it is also a country that is critical to regional security and to the path of the globe and to the security and stability of democracy in this century. This is why I stand to speak briefly on behalf of my friend, Ruben Brigidi, the nominee to be our next ambassador to South Africa, whose confirmation we will take up in just a few moments. Ruben is someone I admire deeply. He attended the Naval Academy, served in the U.S. Navy, was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, both for African Affairs and for Population, Refugee, and Migration. I met him as ambassador to the African Union, knew him well as Dean of the Elliott School at GW. He took on the challenge of service as the president of the University of the South, better known as Sewanee, and now our president has nominated him to represent us in South Africa. As we've seen in recent votes and actions at the United Nations, and in discussions and debates around the world, African countries in this moment, during this war in Ukraine, in the face of Russia's aggression.
I want to thank the gentleman and my friend from Louisiana for hosting this special order hour and for all that he's doing to help get the conservative voice out there. I rise today to deliver the 13th installment of my Farm Bill Impact Series during a time when the effects of a poor wheat harvest in Kansas are only compounded by crushing inflation. This is insult added to injury for Kansas wheat farmers. Producers are laboring under the burden of skyrocketing input costs while they work hard to keep our country fed, fueled, and clothed. And they deserve workable solutions to this inflation crisis before the situation gets any worse. Farming is already a risky, volatile business without the added burden of inflation, and USDA estimates that input costs will continue to rise at astronomical rates through 2022. For an example of the risk of volatility, the wheat harvest just ended in Kansas, and the results were a fraction of the yield that farmers in the wheat state hope for and bank on during normal seasons. The Farm Bill, which Congress will reauthorize in 2023, exists in part specifically for situations like this past wheat season to provide emergency assistance to the people who feed, fuel, and clothe the world even when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate. The weather in Kansas can be extreme and unpredictable, which means that growing wheat in the wheat state can be a very, very difficult prospect at times. I had an intern in my office this summer named Parker Vogelmoore, who is a rising senior at Kansas State University, where he serves as the student body president. He's also a member of the 6th generation of his family's farm in Scott City, which lies in my district.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve a point of order. The clerk will report the amendment. Point of order has been reserved.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1808, offered by Mr. Johnson of Louisiana, page 18, line 12.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read, and the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer a very common sense amendment that I don't think anyone here should object to. The amendment would simply include employees at pregnancy care centers among those exempt from the restrictions in the bill. Now look, here's the logic behind it, and I dare anybody to challenge me on this. There have been more than 50 instances of attacks on pro-life organizations since the majority opinion in the Dobbs case was leaked in May. That's just in the last 11 weeks, 50. Let me give you a short list of some examples. May 5th, 2022, Portland, Oregon. Vandals smashed numerous windows and spray-painted graffiti on the Southeast Portland Pregnancy Resource Center. May 13th, activists left threatening messages on the front of the Alpha Pregnancy Center in Reisterstown, Maryland, including the messages, "If abortions aren't safe, neither are you. You're anti-choice, not pro-life, not a clinic," etc. May 18th, vandals targeted a women's faith-based medical clinic in Auburn, Alabama, defacing the clinic's sign and staff members' vehicles. May 25th, Linwood, Washington, anti-life activists smashed windows and vandalized the Next Step Pregnancy Center with the threat, "If abortion isn't safe, you aren't either." June 6th, Asheville, North Carolina, vandals broke windows and left graffiti on the Mountain Area